Hello, I'm Amitha Balachandra. You're watching the 6:30 p.m. show. Like I say every day, make sure that you ask your questions in the chat window because this conversation is going to be interactive. Use the super chat feature, and I'm sure you'll have a lot of questions to ask today because it's something that I've been wanting to pick up for the last 2 days now. Because the Delhi University's first cutoff list is out, and it's gone up as high as 100%. That's what we're going to be discussing today. Before I get to my guest, before I introduce my guest to you, I will go over some statistics and what's really happened. Now, Delhi University's first cutoff list is out, and for the third time since 2011, it's gone up to 100%. Cutoffs are basically calculated taking the best of four subjects in class 12 boards. And this year, we understand, as far as the statistics go, 1.57 lakh students have scored over 90% marks, and that's really unprecedented. What we also understand is that for over 70,000 seats in 2020 alone, more than 3.53 lakh students applied for admissions. In fact, as the cutoff the first list of the cutoff has gone up to 100%. There are protests that are happening by Krantikari Yuva Sangathan and left-affiliated Students Federation who have staged protests now against these cutoffs. Additionally, there are reports also saying that as of today, 19,000 applications have already come in on the first day. Now, what we're going to attempt to find out through this conversation is, first of all, is this fair at all? And if at all it is, how is it fair? Second, what is the reason for universities to actually keep such high cutoffs? And if so, then how will this ever provide a level playing field for students across all boards? And what are the problems with the system itself? And to have those questions answered, I have with me Nandita Narain, who is the former president of Delhi University Teachers Association. Join me. Ms. Narain, thank you so much for making time. First of all, if you can just break it down for us, help us understand what is the reason for such high cutoffs.
All right. So a cutoff fixed by a college within a university depends on the number of applications and the marks of the applicants. The number of seats given to each course in each institution is fixed by the capacity, which is evaluated by the University Grants Commission and the University of Delhi, keeping in mind the infrastructure required, the number of the capacity of the classrooms and so on. So each course has a fixed number of seats. Now, when we receive applications, we have to not go well beyond the number of seats. If there are 50 seats, we would not like to have a cutoff through which 100 students would come, because where would they all sit? So the first cutoff particularly, the teachers of an institution cannot take a risk of fixing a cutoff which will end up in over-admission. When we reach number 50 or maybe 60 or 70, something slightly over the number of seats, we have to stop there and say, okay, that is the cutoff. Now, the results that have been coming from the CBSE and other boards are so high, and they get higher every year, that the college and the university really does not have a choice. I know it is not a satisfactory system, but I think the bigger question is one of expansion in the demand, and there is no corresponding expansion in the government colleges, universities of high quality across the country. So that is really the need of the hour, to have an expansion in the number of colleges and universities which can give good quality, affordable education to the aspirants.
So we come to that, we'll divide it into three parts. First, I want to focus on the number of applications you get every year itself. In 2020, like I pointed out earlier, for just about 70,000 seats, there were 3.23 lakh students who had applied. So do you see in the last couple of years, at least, that number increasing year on year? And is that the problem, that there are so few seats and that so many people are applying?
That is definitely the crux of the whole problem. I do not have the exact figures for the number of applicants in the previous few years, but it would be approximately the same, or if not a little more. There have been some private universities which have been coming up, and some students do end up going to those private universities. But we see that the first choice of students is still this government university, which has managed to maintain its standards despite having lots of problems in terms of not getting enough funds for infrastructure and salary and the facilities that we should be getting. So, but that is still the first choice. However, when students do not get admission in any Delhi University college because of high cutoffs, they are either forced to go to private universities if they can afford it, and most can't afford it. So most of them end up going to the open school or correspondence courses where you clearly do not get the same kind of attention or quality of learning.
And that brings me to the second question. DJ Joey has a question. He says, wouldn't the percentage system be a flawed system where the percentage is solely calculated as per academic marks and not as per the individual development, considering factors like skills and hobbies? We'll come to the way the evaluation system itself works. But before that, I want to also point out, and we'll put this up on the screen as well. In 2020, 38,686 students have scored above 95%. How is it? And this is about double of the number of students who scored the same in 2019. So year on year, you see the number of students who are scoring above 95% also increasing. Why is that happening?
That is one of the problems. And I think the CBSE and all the other boards, there are some boards which are getting 100 out of 100 very easily. I have been doing some screening for my own college. So there has to be some sort of formula by which we are able to either normalize the marks across boards, because it becomes extremely unfair for a student living in a state where the state board does not give as high marks as another state board. And by increasing the marks of the students, if the state board thinks that they will improve their chances of getting into good central universities like Delhi University, it's extremely unfair to the students of other states. And so there is a competition between boards to give higher and higher marks. Now we end up actually cancelling, neutralizing the entire issue, because if everyone's getting such high marks, then we will be forced to devise some other method of admitting students, and which we are currently opposed to, because there are already so many entrance exams. We do not really want one more entrance exam. And then entrance exams benefit people who are already very privileged. They can afford coaching, and they have the fees for the coaching and so on. So it is will be even more unfair to students who come from underprivileged backgrounds. As it is, the cutoff system, the marks system is heavily weighed towards people who come from a privileged background, because other things being the same, other things are not the same. Everybody does not have the same facilities at home, coaching and so on, as everybody else. So already the people in the highest marks bracket tend to be from the upper echelons in terms of economic background. And although very meritorious students could have lower marks. It's sad, but this is the only system we have of giving admissions. Any other system could be equally good.
No, you said that this is, of course, one of the problems, but is it because the question papers are easier, the evaluation system has been made easier, or is it because of grace marks? Because one of the controversies that came out in 2017 was asking CBSE to not have moderation policy, but that it came into effect only after 2018, according to CBSE. But reports after 2018 have shown that this perhaps still continues. There have been investigations conducted by the Queen, for instance, or even Times of India, where they've said that this policy still continues.
Well, I think they'd better rethink the whole policy, because, when we took admission, I don't know when you are much younger than I, but when people of my generation took admission, even getting, a 75 was considered very good, and you could, or a 78 or an 80, and you could walk into a college like St. Stephen's. But now there is, it's just everybody is getting such high marks, and marks do not necessarily are not the sole indicator of merit in any case, as I was explaining. For example, we've been holding interviews in our college. There are, pros and cons of the interview system, but we did find quite often that students with higher marks were not academically as sound as students with slightly lower marks. So marks is just a convenient method. It doesn't necessarily indicate merit. So that is another issue altogether. But in any case, even given the current mark system, CBSE and all boards must be compelled to start rationalizing their marks. And there should be either, a normalizer of some kind, so that students of different boards can be compared, looking at the overall result in a particular state. I don't know. It's not an easy solution, but the current system is getting more and more difficult.
Also, give us a sense and perhaps some personal point of view as well on what kind of pressure this puts for students, for instance, because we've seen that year on year, the number of suicides have also increased. NCRB data, in fact, shows that in 2017, it was 9,905. And in 2018, it went up to more than 10,000, 10,159 students died by suicide. Ms. Narain, can you hear me?
Yeah, I got the gist of what you were saying. Yes,
Yeah.
it's certainly a cause of concern that, we are being so unfair to the youth of the country, and whereby denying them opportunities to study further, even when they have the will and they have the capacity. So as I going back to what I said in the beginning, the government must make into education. Private universities are not a solution, and if being generated by the poorest of the, which is paid by the poorest persons in the country through taxes on everything that they buy in the market. So the government owes it to the people of the country to not only afford, when you cannot give, I mean, look at the situation of employment. You're not able to give livelihood to your people. So you must make up, at least give them an opportunity to be empowered through education. Education, like in Finland, like in so many countries in Europe, should be free. All the way till the PG, from the KG to the PG. That is the only way forward. Whereas the national education policy that has just been announced by the government does the opposite. It plans to reduce the current 50,000 institutions, higher education institutions, to just 15,000. They're talking about a contraction. And those 50,000, let me tell you, includes private and government institutions. And they want to reduce them all to just 15,000. Now, what is the logic behind that? Is not your greatest problem in the country lack of access to higher education and lack of good quality, affordable education for the bulk of your country? Where are we taking our young? I mean, what is going to happen to the future? Are we going into intellectual colonization again? Are we going to have, 90% remaining out of the portals of higher education? That is what should be discussed by people, the citizens of this country, and pressure must be mounted on the government not to move public funded education towards privatization, which is currently what is happening.
So you're essentially the crux of what you're saying in a nutshell, if I have to say it, you're saying that it's not one university's fault per se, but the system itself is flawed. The evaluation process must be relooked at. And you're also saying that perhaps more public universities is something that the government should be looking at, that we need more infrastructure.
Yes, government must invest at least 10% of the central budget on education and a reasonable percent of that on higher education. Otherwise, however good an institution might be considered by somebody, if you can't enter that institution, if 95% of our Indians by birth are condemned because they're coming from certain economic backgrounds, however good they may be, they cannot dream to go to university. Are we not, condemning are the people of this country to slavery? I mean, this is like slavery. When you don't get good education, you cannot get good employment, you cannot be a citizen that can participate in the life of the country. So is it not inherently against the principles of a democracy and against the principles of our constitution? We are moving away from those values.
And before I let you go, one quick question that I have for you is, what does this do to learning? For instance, I want to go back to DJ Joey's question, who spoke about skill set, because the evaluation process does not per se take that into consideration. Do you believe
Right.
that that has to change as well? That students are not really learning, but they're perhaps just mugging up for the sake of percentage?
Absolutely. I think that is one of the things that is happening because there's so much competition and such panic about getting into a good institution. And then there are entrance exams, so people are actually focusing on coaching institutions rather than actually, spending their last year in school learning. that is true in any case. The question that was asked by the student that you had mentioned in the beginning was that why can't we take the overall development of the student into account rather than only the marks in the
All right, so we seem to have lost that connection. So sorry, but this is the crux of what
achievements of the student. Yeah, did you lose me?
Yes,
I
if you could
in the
make that
middle.
last point again, please.
Yeah, okay. I'm so sorry. I think a call was coming in. Yes, what I was saying was that it would be great if we could have some other method which would be, taking into account the students' overall skill set. But there is no way which would not be then, deemed as completely arbitrary. There are no fixed parameters. So we do have an extracurricular quota in every college. There is an ECA quota where students with marks lower than cutoffs can make it through their extracurricular prowess, and it's taken very seriously by the faculty, and there are proper tests and so on. Other than the marks, right now we don't have any other system. We have a sports quota, we have an ECA quota, and in colleges like St. Stephen's, we do not have an ECA quota, but we do evaluate a person's extracurricular achievements and overall personality through the interview, apart from the academic part. So we do try to give it some weightage, and I would say that we should give some weightage or deprivation points like JNU used to give to students coming from weaker backgrounds. I think that will go a long way in being able to level the completely non-level playing field to some extent. Students coming from government schools, students coming from a weaker economic background, maybe we could give them some extra points. That is something that the government should actually think about.
All right, so more public universities, and you've also mentioned that some more weightage has to be given for students from, marginalized backgrounds, or also to give a level playing field, and that's what we need to look at, because currently the number of applicants are really, really high when compared to the number of seats, and it's gone up to as high as 100%. And that's what students, and I'm sure a lot of parents, are also worried about at this point. And the bigger concern is, why are more and more students scoring more than 95% every year on year, and that number is also increasing. Perhaps that evaluation process must be re-looked at. Ms. Narain, thank you so much for joining us with your views. And for viewers who are watching right now, make sure you come back at 8 p.m. We have another conversation coming up. P. D'Souza is going to be talking about the controversial Tanishq ad and whether brands should be fearing trolling at all. That's coming up at 8 p.m. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.